10:02 on the fan. What's going on? This is the Tiki and Tierney show, and we got a whole lot to unpack today. And let's just start with this. And I know it hurts. It hurts. It hurts about as much as anything can possibly hurt in sports. It hurts more, I think, than, losing at the gun or a devastating injury, because this is so much less common when somebody that you love, somebody that you revere, somebody that you put on this pedestal that so few people reside on and in athletically, when he basically says he doesn't want you. And that's what Jacob deGrom said. He doesn't want you, he doesn't want the Mets, and he doesn't want us as a city. So what I say is, get lost.
It's hard to say that, though.
That's
BT.
what I say about Jacob deGrom. Take a hike.
You can't say get lost because of how the fan feels historically about Jacob deGrom with his Cy Youngs and the dominance that he had, and the fact that it felt like for so many years the rest of the Mets, I guess the organization as a whole, just let him down. As good as he was, there just wasn't the full pieces around him, at least not consistently. There were some, really good seasons, but there wasn't the full piece around him. We also don't know, how Jacob deGrom feels about the intensity of New York and the media and the fan criticism and all that other stuff. But in that same breath, I hear what you're saying. The New York Mets likely put on a masterclass on how to get rid of a player who is a star, who the fans adore and love and cherish and want to be on this team without actually saying, get out of here. I think they did they did it the right way. Now, they insulted him because they didn't give him as much money in an offer as they did to Max Scherzer, who has no affiliation with the Mets. But at the same time, they offered him $40 million a year. Mm-hmm. That's a big number for a guy who has had a lot of injury issues over the last couple of seasons.
Well, I mean, listen, I think what's interesting to me, and I was at a Christmas party on Friday night when the news broke, right? And a lot of Met fans at the party, and they were a little stunned, although the conversations, a lot of the kids I coach, their dads, a lot of the conversations we've had over the summer and the last couple of months, what do you think about deGrom? What do you think about Judge? I get obviously asked that a lot, and I said, I think deGrom's leaving. Like, that was always my take. And then the other day, I had a little bit of a pivot. I feel like it's kind of flipped a little, and I kind of second-guessed my initial opinion. I probably should have stayed pat because he did bounce. But I think what's most interesting about this, and most, I think, perplexing now, although I do think that there's good news at the end of the road for the Mets here. When Steve Cohen bought this team, this was unimaginable. That is unavoidable. That is, even if your greatest, strongest self-defense mechanism is up today, and I understand why it would be, Met fans, I do. If it's up there and that hard exterior, that just out of self-preservation, we didn't need Jacob deGrom, and he's not worth the 5 in essence 6 years. By the way, you're right about that last part. But you were trying to protect your soul because you love this guy. And this guy basically said, I'm leaving. I don't need you. But when Cohen bought the team, nobody thought this would happen because it happened with Seaver. It happened with Strawberry, all right? To a lesser extent. Darryl had some issues and whatever. But I think that at the end of the day, while it obviously emotionally scars to the core of your baseball existence, I think that the Mets will have this galvanizing pivot, which will make them not only better this year, but next year and the year after. Now, I don't know if it's just Verlander. I don't know if it's just Rodon. I don't know if it's Verlander and Rodon. I don't know. But if you think for a second that the Mets aren't about to make a series of moves that fortifies the now and tomorrow, you're nuts. And for 6 years, the Rangers are nuts. He was not worth it.
Well, unless
he was not worth it.
Well, I think if you're the Rangers have to start showing, or at least in their minds, have to start showing that they're a serious organization, a team that is trying to win a championship, that is going above and beyond. This is why last year, BT, when we were talking about the potential destinations for Aaron Judge, I brought up the Rangers, right? And you were like, oh, you're crazy. But you know what? They have to do it. Now, maybe it's not Judge, but they needed to do something like this. So to go spend money on Jacob deGrom, it kind of is in line with what I thought about them a year ago when they spent that money on Seager, and I forget who the other free agent they brought in was. But Simeon. So I knew that the Rangers were in the market to spend money. I didn't think that they would go after Jacob deGrom this hard, but it makes sense because Jacob deGrom kind of intimated, because he doubled down on, I'm opting out. Right, you got hurt now. I'm still opting out.
Yep.
He doubled down on really not wanting to be here, so the door was open for him to go. But that doesn't soften the blow for those diehard Met fans who have championed him for so many years. And it was always, we had a season suck, but at least we got Jacob deGrom. Man, if we just get one or two more pieces. Yeah, and then we also have Jacob deGrom. Like, he's been on the tip of Met fans' lips for years. And now it just kind of ends so abruptly. It feels unfulfilling, despite the great seasons that he had when he was here.
That's why it hurts. I mean, listen, Tiki, the bottom line is this. When you really pour yourself into a team, there's just going to be certain days where the energy that comes back toward you is a little short of what you put out. And there's nothing we can do. You can't force deGrom to want to be here. We can't force Judge to sign whatever final contract the Yankees put in front of him. There's just things that we can't do. We can't force Leon Rose to trade Barrett for Mitchell. As much as we want to think that yelling and ranting and tweeting and hoping and all the other things that we do on a day-to-day basis in this city with our teams really has an impact. Yeah, economically it could have an impact. And, you want to tell me back in the day Mike and the Mad Dog were an impetus to deal for Mike Piazza? Maybe, because the media climate was so different back then. But I'm not surprised by this. I'm also not a Mets fan, so I'm not wounded by this. And I clearly separate the two, the pragmatic part of the brain and then the emotional part of the brain. And I think on a pragmatic level, unless you are just out of your mind inconsolable, then you have to understand that what the Rangers did was reckless. A 6-year deal for deGrom is asinine. It is asinine.
But it's only
Come
could
back
be
in
5.
2 years and tell me how that contract looks.
It could be 5.
Fine.
Yeah.
5 years. Asinine. Now it comes down to this. The owner, who everybody believed with every fiber of their being would do whatever it takes to get the Mets off the tarmac and into the space of consistent championship conversation, viability. Like, you'd fly with the Dodgers, you'd fly with the Yankees, you'd fly with the Astros. You want to get there, now he's got to do what we all thought he would do, and that is bring in the horses. I don't mind that deGrom left the stable, but there better be some bucks coming out next, and I think there will be. I really do. All right, first up, Rich Fishkill on the Fan. What's going on, Rich?
What's going on, guys? How you doing today?
We're good,
Hey, buddy.
man.
All right, listen, I probably have a different take than most Mets fans, man. I'm happy that Jacob deGrom's gone. We finally took a step forward last year, won 101 games. That guy was responsible for 5 of those wins. He barely pitched 2 years ago. Now he's going to go to Texas. He's going to disappear into obscurity and spend that $185 to $222 million. I'm happy to see that guy go. Get me somebody that's going to come in there and pitch every day and pick me up another bat for the DH and probably sign Justin Verlander, and my New York Mets will be on their way. That's how I feel about Jacob deGrom. Bye-bye, deGrom.
Oh,
Yeah, listen,
I'm tired of him.
yeah.
Listen,
You're tired of him. Wow.
Tiki, you're too nice on these professional athletes, bro.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, Rich. He's got to toughen up a little bit this bar. But come on,
But I'm saying, Rich, all I've heard for years is how much Mets fans revere Jacob deGrom, that he has to be a part of whatever success comes forward.
Yeah,
and with Cohen and the money not being an issue, I'm surprised to hear people saying
he wasn't given a chance to match that. Listen, and Rich, I'm with you, Rich. I get it. I think there were too many times when deGrom had a chance to, even though he said it a few times, but to really profess his love for this city, he kind of took a pass, which is why
That, by the way, is a big deal.
Yeah, it is. Well, that's why I think people have gone from, or slowly are transitioning from the hurt to the anger, or at least maybe anger strong, but the realization that, hey, if somebody doesn't want you, I've always said to you, Tiki, you can't force somebody to marry you. You could get down on one knee, you could get a 3-carat rock, you could promise a mansion in wherever in the Hollywood Hills, in a beautiful place out east somewhere, a $5 million home. If she doesn't want to marry you, she's not marrying you. And deGrom didn't want to marry us as a city. He didn't want to marry the Mets as an organization. And I say good riddance. I do. Because the guy is always broken down. And listen, this is something that I have said all year. And in real time, you didn't want to hear it because he was still yours. And I get that. And I respect it. But really, if you look at this, and you look at this in a term that is not driven by emotion, he had 11 starts last year. They won 100-plus games, second most wins ever in Mets history. First of all, you didn't win with them, all right? Don't tell me that you can't win without him. And I think the check is coming for Verlander. I think Verlander's going to be behind Scherzer, and then you have to see what you do with the rest of the rotation. And if they whiff on Verlander, I think they're going to outspend the Yankees for Rodon. I really do. Somebody else is coming. Don't tell me this is the end of the road.
Yes,
it's not.
It's definitely not. I mean, there's a plan, and you know that there's a plan because Stevie Cohen said that there was a plan to try to win a World Series. And Jacob deGrom was part of that process. Great. But if he's not, I don't think that this Mets organization is crying in their milk right now that they lost Jacob deGrom. I think this was expertly done on how to move on from a player. Right? Teach you how to move on from a player that everybody loved, but if he ultimately wanted to be elsewhere, because he clearly did, let him go.
877-337-6666. Tiki and Tierney here on The Fan. So, we are inside of our Town Fair Tire studio. Friends at Town Fair remind you that you always get the guaranteed lowest price on name brand tires from Connecticut to Maine. Nobody beats Town Fair Tire. Nobody. Rough weekend, man. I mean, all across the board. deGrom bouncing, Jets losing, Giants tying. Not a whole lot of optimism, but we'll find some common ground with this Jacob deGrom stuff. He was one of ours, and now he's gone. You got to deal with it. You got to move on. And I believe the Mets will pivot in a way that will make them better and more championship viable than when he was actually here. Tiki and Tierney on The Fan.